Hello, I'm Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. You're watching a series of lectures dealing with the philosophical presuppositions of theology. Basically, we're introducing some of the thought of philosophers who have affected the theological tradition. And right now we're working with Leibniz. And last time I was starting to talk about his pan-organicism. Okay. Everything is made up of these organic unities, monads, and he distinguishes the primary entelechy of the soul from matter. Now the matter is an intentional object for the soul. It is a perceptions for the soul. And then the monad now is made up both of the soul and its activity and its intentionality of matter. So matter and soul together make up the monad. And now you can talk about a secondary matter, a mass. This is the organic machine, if you will, in which innumerable subordinate monads come together. So now you got monads coming together here. And then we can talk about the animal, that is, the corporeal substance, which the dominating monad here makes into one machine. Well, some of you certainly probably remember our good friend Anaxagoras. He's the guy that said that everything is made up of everything. He was a pre-Socratic philosopher. And of course, this thing is a tree rather than a manure pile, right? Because there's more tree stuff there than manure pile stuff. Well, this isn't exactly that, but the dominating monad controls what the thing is. So this is an animal, right, of a certain kind because the dominating monad is in control of this. Thus, he says, we see that each living body has a dominant entelechy. Entelechy, of course, is this aim, which in the animal is the soul, but the limbs of this living body are full of other living beings, plants, animals, each of which also has its entelechy or its dominant soul. So you end up with a hierarchy of monads. And this is not altogether easy to conceive, so I kind of just like to let Leibniz speak for himself again here. He says that any mass contains innumerable monads, for although any one organic body in nature has its corresponding dominant monad, it nevertheless contains in its parts other monads endowed in the same way with organic bodies subservient to the primary one, and the whole of nature is nothing else, for it is necessary that every aggregate result from simple substances as from its elements. Okay, so now we got a bird flying through the air. I was watching my pond this morning. I had a duck out there. So I'm watching the duck, and then it went up and it ate a little bit, and it took a little dip in the water. It seems to be a purposeful being. I was contemplating its telos, the teleological aspects of this creature. Certainly seemed to be active. It seemed to be an active unity. It was doing things, and yet it has feathers and other kinds of things. Well, the thing in control of that duck is the duck soul, if you will, right? There are other souls, if you will, that comprise different parts of the duck, but the duck soul sort of controls the way that this whole batch of things behave. All of nature is full of life, according to Leibniz. Everything is made up of monads. Each of these monads has a kind of a soul. Of course, there are infinite degrees of life in the soul, and some are much more active than others, but all souls are a unity. Every monad is a unity. And a duck monad kind of controls how this batch of things behave, which are lots of other monads comprise this duck, if you will. The only real things now for Leibniz are simple substances with perception and appetite. Appetition, we talked about that. These are monads. And he says that considering the matter carefully, we may say that there is nothing in things but simple substances, and in them perception and appetition. We've talked about this. Moreover, matter and motion are not substances or things as much as they are the phenomenon, now there we go, of perceivers, the reality of which is situated in the harmony of the perceivers, which themselves at different times and with other perceivers. What he is saying is something that every good idealist says, right? That finally, perceptions are properties of the perceiver in this thing, right? The perceptions that this monad has are the properties of that monad. And these perceptions don't exist as some stuff outside of that monad. They are always in and for that monad. Physical bodies, then, are ultimately intentional objects, objects about which we can have particular beliefs. Okay, this means a stone is real only in the sense that it is an object of perception that is coherent from the standpoint of a particular perceiver and in harmony with the perceptions of other perceivers. Okay? So matter is, in some sense, it's directly present for this, but if we start to talk about matter in itself, that's an abstraction away from these perceptions of various monads. Monads, of course, are not extended. They aren't in space. Well, no mental things are in space, right? We've already talked about that. Physical things are in space, but not mental things. I mean, I can't locate my thought of, the investigations in Benghazi. Where's that thought? Where's your thought? Over in your head somewhere? Or where? The idea here, of course, is that when we're talking with the mental, we're not talking about space at all. We might be talking about temporal location, not spatial location. Monads are not extended. They're like minds, but they bear ordered relations to other bodies through the body in which they are present or to which they represent themselves as being attached. Okay, now, here we go. Every simple substance offers a perspective on the world from the standpoint of God. Every particular substance offers a perspective on the world from the standpoint of God. He writes, now, first of all, it is very evident that created substances depend upon God, who preserves them and who even produces them continually by, now listen to this, a kind of emanation. Are you hearing this? Just as we produce our thoughts. Just as we produce our thoughts, so God is producing monads who produce their thoughts, their perceptions. Then he goes on to say, for God, so to speak, turns on all sides and in all ways the general system of phenomena which he finds it good to produce in order to manifest his glory, and he views all the faces of the world in all ways possible, since there is no relation that escapes his omniscience. The result of each view of the universe, as seen from a certain position, is a substance which expresses the universe in conformity with this view. Should God see fit to render his thought actual and to produce this substance. So God brings into being monads which have a certain perspective on all things. And every substance, in a sense, is a different perspective than that God can take on the universe. I can't say it any more clearly than to say that, well, every created substance seems to be a kind of emanation from God. There is a perspective that represents the world from the perspective of all points of view upon the universe, and that is God. God is the perspective that includes all other perspectives. All other perspectives, seeing the universe, when you bring them all up into unity, that's God's perspective. Now, if you're thinking Hegel here, yes, you should think that. think a little bit of Spinoza here with modes. That's a good thing to think too. Divine omniscience entails knowledge of the world from every perspective simultaneously. Monads are thus infinite perspectives on the world that emanate from God's own nature. Well, those are some heavy thoughts to leave you with at this particular lecture. I'm Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt with the Christ School of Theology. If you've liked this, you're going to like what I have to say next. So come on right back. We'll have more to say about Leibniz. Thank you.